I believed in a kind of pursuit of excellence, and related that as some amount of a pursuit of individuality and exploration of individuality.
Welcome to episode 152 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. On the episode is NOA Eve. NOA Eve is a double bassist, composer, and recording artist whose music brings together classical technique, bluegrass, new acoustic music, and a highly personal approach to the double bass.
Before we get started, if you enjoy conversations with today's leading bassists, make sure to subscribe to the Bass Shed podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Every subscription helps us grow and connect the bass community. Now, here are a couple of resources for bass players.
If you're a double bassist, you have to check out my friends at Lemur Music. For over 40 years, they've been one of the most trusted names in the bass world, offering strings, bows, cases, pickups, accessories, and expert advice for bass players of every level. Visit lemurmusic.com or click the link in the show notes and use the promo code TheBassShed, all one word, to save 10%. lemurmusic.com. All right, folks, I'm excited to tell you about the book I put together with bass legend Jerry Jamont. Jerry Jamont, 15 Timeless Bass Lines. Jerry Jamont, 15 Timeless Bass Lines explores 15 classic bass lines from Jamont's incredible career. The lines that help define the sound of soul and R&B recordings by artists like Aretha Franklin, King Curtis, and so many more. You can find Jerry Jamont 15 Timeless Bass Lines at thebassshedacademy.org or click on the link in the show notes below. All right, my guest NOA Eve recently released their debut album titled Late Bloomer, a deeply personal record that brings together solo double bass, new acoustic music, and songwriting. In our conversation, we talk about NOA's musical journey from studying classical bass to discovering classical bass legends and eventually developing a musical identity outside of the traditional role of the double bass. We also dig into the making of the album Late Bloomer and the personal stories behind the music and how NOA used the bass as a vehicle for composition, improvisation, and self-expression. It was a wonderful talk with NOA, and there's a lot of stuff in this talk that I think we can all apply to our own artistic career about being bold enough to be an individual on the instrument. And here it is. Here's my talk with double bassist and composer NOA Eve. NOA, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for being on the show, and congrats on the record.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Man, I have a lot of questions about it.
Sure.
I'm regularly surprised by how many folks are putting out great records. Your album, when's the official release of it?
The official release is June 28th, accompanied by a live release show in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
There is a single releasing on YouTube today.
Oh, today. Great.
Yeah.
This isn't live, but cool. Today is the 8th. So many questions. First, let's talk about your backstory. So you're originally from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never been to Buffalo, but my mother's from Buffalo, so I've heard about Buffalo quite a bit. Talk to me about your musical experience up there, because from what I know, it's super cold, and it's mainly just a working class town. I don't think of culture, like rich classical culture or bluegrass culture, when I think of Buffalo, New York.
Well, I think, I would say it's largely a working class area, but there are, let's see, I'm trying to think how to break this apart. So there is the Buffalo Phil, which is a really excellent orchestra. My instructor for undergrad, for my second through fourth years, was the principal bassist of the Buffalo Phil, Daniel Pendley, who is a graduate of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music.
Okay.
He's phenomenal, and he kind of taught me a lot, because University at Buffalo is where I went to undergrad, and it's just because it was close to home, and I guess I wasn't quite ready to go out into the big scary world, and I was like figuring things out. And so I went to University at Buffalo, and that was primarily a like a jazz and a musicology and music theory school, not as much as a performance school. Because like Buffalo, from what I understand, because I, of course, don't know everything happening in all the pockets of it, is like there's a lot of like very like cutting edge avant-garde music happening. That's like a lot of what was happening when I was in school. There's a lot of the classical composition, classical, I guess we're going to put some quotes around that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it comes from, I know what you're saying though, but like 20th century inspired.
Yeah, exactly.
Avant-garde things. Yeah.
Yes. The extremely complex, dense, music, a lot of that kind of stuff was what was happening, there. And there was like a lot of the folks there were also involved in the jazz scene, and I like having not gone to like a ton of shows, but like going to stuff that like because I had like one other colleague in the bass program who was primarily a jazz bassist. Seeing like what he was doing and like seeing what his teachers were doing. It was a lot of like very wild stuff, a lot of like questions being asked about like what music is, like where the delineation between like sound and noise and music, all that, like that was kind of like a lot of what the school was.
The John Cage version of avant-garde, like all sound is noise, and really pushing the limits on composition.
There was a lot of that, and I was able to get involved with some of that, which was really, really cool because I think it helped broaden my burgeoning musical horizons. So again, not a big like folk town, not a big bluegrass town. A lot of people tend to like really weird, out there kind of stuff from my own observations. But that has been something that I think somewhat informs me. But like growing up, my parents didn't want me to have a CD player for whatever reason.
Okay.
And so like I was kind of like passively absorbing like a lot of music, and that all kind of like informed my own proclivities. Like my parents really like Rush and Peter Gabriel. That was like something that they were very down with.
I'm not mad at Peter Gabriel. Rush, I'm not a fan.
Sorry, what?
I said Peter Gabriel, I'm not mad at. I like Peter Gabriel. Rush isn't my thing. Yeah, but cool. I mean, like, it's still very intelligent music. Both of them are very informed, intelligent music.
Yeah, I would absolutely, agree with that. But like, it was something that like I wasn't like sitting down like to like really like listen to it. It was just something that was kind of like happening. My older brother, was in like a ska band. And so like I heard some of that. I remember like nu metal became a thing, and all my friends were listening to that. So like I was absorbing like the early records from like Korn and like Limp Bizkit, like that kind of stuff. But like my own primary musical informer was like video game music for like a really, really, really long time. And it's still, I find it pretty foundational for me in a lot of ways. And then that kind of got integrated with when I heard Edgar Meyer for the first time. So I started taking private lessons for bass when I was a senior in high school. It was like the first time I was getting like dedicated, like, this is how you play this instrument lessons. Even though like I was playing in like a middle school and high school orchestra, they were just like, I don't know, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, right. So, right. Like some, I mean, I know because I do the job, like some middle schools and high schools have coaches and will bring in, a pro to work with, but most don't. Like most, you're left to your own devices, and maybe the director's, a clarinet player or something and has no idea and tries to speak to the bass section as if it's a violin section, which also they have no idea about. But it's kind of close, so they're going to be like, "Watch your bowings," and that's all they know.
Yeah, they don't really know how it's such a different instrument, and we know that. So I started taking lessons my senior year with another graduate of Cincinnati Conservatory. Actually, he like just moved to the area. There was space in his studio. I started studying with him, and he was like, "You got to check this Edgar Meyer guy out. He's like the guy." And I had listened to him, and it was kind of like a light just went on. I was like, "This is what I want to do."
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's what we all want to do. As soon as you hear Edgar Meyer, like we all think it's obtainable because he makes it sound effortless. Rewind real
yeah,
quick. How'd you get involved with bass? Like you,
I
middle school and
I
high school, so you're already playing pretty young. What was the first major move to be like, yeah, I want to go with that instrument?
well, like my parents really put a lot of pressure on me to like do like all of the extracurriculars, right?
Okay.
So like I was doing sports, I was doing like all of like the advanced classes, as many as that I could do. I was like doing all that kind of stuff. Um, and then, my school very fortunately had a music program and they were like, "You're doing this." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
All right, great. Yeah.
and I was a big heavy kid and I played the big instrument, and that's kind of how it happened. Yeah, it was
Okay.
just something. Yeah, it was like not like a very complex process in that kind of way. I was like, yeah, I'll just play this one, and
Right.
then
Yeah. There's no poetic journey to discovering the double bass. It's just you ended up with it.
yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like as an adult, there's been a much more poetic journey, like
Sure.
learning it and understanding my role relative to it, and I guess the larger musical culture with the instrument. But yeah, I would say initially, no, it was kind of like me big, it big.
Yeah. Let's be friends.
Yeah.
So what was the first Edgar Meyer recording you heard?
Well, he told me about this guy, and then I went to Barnes and Noble
Yeah.
and I bought my first CDs as a senior in high school. I bought his recording of the Bach Cello Suites,
Uh-huh.
and I bought his double concerto
Yeah.
album. And I bought that and I listened to it a million, billion, bajillion times.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got turned on to some of his other stuff because people were like, "Oh yeah, he does like bluegrass," and I was like, "What's that?" And then I had no idea because he was playing like the most classical stuff that I could
Right.
think of. And I was like looking up information on this guy. I was like finding all the YouTube videos I could. I was like doing everything that I possibly could. And then like my for the first year of undergrad, they didn't have like a classical guy. They had like a jazz guy, James Kursdorfer, who was awesome. And he gave me the album Work in Progress. And then I listened to that album a whole bunch. And then I started like listening to some of his, I guess, more original in a more bluegrass, small ensemble duo kind of way. And I remember working up a transcription of Frog Like as best as I could at that point as well, trying to figure out how he did that. And that then everything just kind of went from there, just because I was like so fascinated with like how he was like producing sound and like how dexterous he was with the instrument. And I remember like watching, because like his first album with Chris Thiele had just gotten recorded, and like
Okay.
I was like listening, I was like watching all the YouTube videos for that.
That was like what, around 05, right? That record he did with Chris Thiele?
Something like that. I remember thinking about that album all the time, and I remember like I was like working on the Eccles Sonata in my lessons, and like, which is like baby's first time in thumb position for classical music.
Ernest goes to thumb position.
Yeah, like honestly, like kind of that a little bit. It was like
I like the title. Yeah, maybe that's the new subtitle for the sonata.
yeah, because it's played on like every instrument, but for other instruments, it's like considered like a very like easy, basic piece. But because it has like it goes up higher, and shifts around more, like it's like your first time like getting around the instrument in a more like just a wider range.
Sure.
So that it was like I was like thinking about that. I was like playing that, working on that, but the entire time I'm thinking about like him and Chris playing his concert duo or whatever. And I'm like, how the fuck is he doing this? It's crazy. And I had no idea. I guess how high the mountain really was.
Yeah, good way of saying that. Yes. So you get in. That's clearly I mean, it's evident that inspiration stuck with you and had such a big mark on you because of the presence of all of those sounds on the album.
Yeah.
What was it that kind of got you into the bluegrass culture?
So I knew Edgar was like doing that, but I had no idea like what it was, and like he like kind of does it, but like he's like also doing his like own thing fundamentally, and that's like really good. And it's obviously informed by his musical surroundings, so there's like some of that in there, but like I didn't know what it was to like be a rhythm bass player in a bluegrass band. Like that's all. And like I didn't like know any tunes or like even what it meant to like play the music at all. So I went off to graduate school because I was trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to be a section bass player. Like that never spoke to me. And like I just couldn't do it I just like my brain didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. Like I remember like filling out these like practice logs. I was like giving my teacher like 25 to like 35 hours a week, just like shedding as much as I could. And then like I would do that, and it'd be like working on like all the excerpts that you're supposed to do for auditions and like doing all that kind of stuff. And it was like pulling teeth. I hated it. I hated it so much. And it's not, I want to clarify, because it's not like the music isn't good. It's just not what spoke to me and what motivated me to like play the instrument in the first place. I just like, it was really hard for me. And I felt very like, even like putting in the reps and putting in the hours and like thinking really critically about it and like taking it really seriously, it was just so tough for me.
Looking back on that period in your life and now understanding what your artistic career has become, was it that you needed to, I mean, because this record has a strong musical narrative and a very deeply strong personal narrative to it. Was it, can you connect some dots personally to that version of your historical self and be like, yeah, I didn't want to be in this section. I didn't want to be another one doing the same thing. I needed to be recognized for individuality. And was there that pursuit even back then that informed some of those decisions, do you think?
I would say that there's definitely something to that, I guess, in my own way, still now, but I think in a more perhaps rigid sense than I believed in a kind of pursuit of excellence, and related to that, some amount of a pursuit of individuality and exploration of individuality. And I guess for me, at the time, I think I didn't quite understand how difficult it really was to like be a good bass section player. I just knew that Edgar was like, for me, considered like at the top of the mountain. He was like the guy. And I was like, oh, I want to be really good, so I'm going to try to be like him. It was like a very naive, uninformed, but also like very, and like,
right, like if I just sound like Edgar, then I'll be good. So I just need to sound like Edgar. Like I've had those people throughout my career, and well, if I just sound like them, then I'll be good. So let me just go sound like them, and then you realize like, oh my gosh, that might not ever happen.
It's really complicated, and it's not even like I don't want like getting into the idea of like talent and like what's innate versus what can be learned and all that kind of stuff. I think it's more just like I could never be him because I have not lived his life and I don't have his brain chemistry.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So I over time, and part of what took this album so long was trying to like figure out, I guess, how I wanted to sound, how I wanted to approach the music, and like, really banging my head on the wall in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different situations, trying to make pretty big swings in terms of artistic choices and seeing what stuck and like what didn't, and seeing what I could do and what what worked and like what didn't, not just like as a bass player, like from like a fundamental like technique or arrangement kind of way, but like also what resonated to an audience member or just like some rando, right? Because like I'm a huge bass nerd. I think this stuff is really cool. I see someone doing some like wild stuff. I'm like, that's sick. That's awesome. Like that's enough for my attention immediately to just be like, what's happening here? I'm
right.
But like the random person is like, I don't know, I like Drake, I guess, and I'm that's cool. But like
random person is like, oh, that's a bass, you know?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, that's a cello, and I'm like, okay,
right. Back to that old.
I mean, that still happens to me as I'm out gigging, and I'm sure it's not unusual to you.
Sure.
So like I had to like figure out like my own way, and that was like very that was complicated by various other things kind of happening. Like my junior year of school of undergrad, my parents kicked me out for being, well, for a lot of reasons. The label that they put on it was that because I was not straight or really a guy, but they were like not stoked about that because I was like dating this guy in secret, and then they were like really upset, and it was weird because like they said they were cool with it, but then it happened and like it wasn't cool with them like even a little bit. So I got kicked out, and then I like moved in with this guy, and then like me and this guy were like dating for like a really long time, and then we got married, and then like he was treating me really badly, and I was having a lot of issues with like my own self-confidence due to stuff that he was doing very deliberately. And so it took a long time because like I still had like this notion of like this pursuit of excellence that I was like holding on to, frankly, for dear life. And like Edgar was kind of like the thing I like, the reference point that I had in the entire time. I'm like having all these like crazy musical experiences, and I'm like aiming for this thing that is fundamentally impossible, and I have perspective on that now. But it gave me a direction to continue to like figure myself out and figure out what I was trying to accomplish musically.
So do you think the lack of awareness about your position now on respecting Edgar's playing, but understanding that you're your own musician, but thinking that like you could sound exactly like him in your younger years, was that kind of a sense of hope? I mean, it seems like it had its place, although maybe naive. Without that, you wouldn't have continued to pursue to the degree and to the level that you have.
I would say that it was foolish, but it was also very brave, and I think very helpful for where I was in my life. I would say that for sure. Yeah. It was and like I I did a lot of stuff to my body in order to like try to like imitate his physicality while he was playing as well. And some of that was for good, and then some of that is like I play with a German bow, for example. And I also don't have like one of the best basses like kind of ever made.
What's the bass? Actually, like to talk about that quickly, there's a very clear tone and a very evenness in the tone across the whole record. Like I wouldn't have guessed that was I don't know, however you want to explain it. I don't even know what the bass is, but given how you just spoke of the bass, it seems like it's not what you want to be playing. If you had your bass,
I will continue to probably play this bass. It's right here. I will continue to play this bass probably for the rest of my life. It is the first bass I ever got. I got it from a shop in upstate New York, Buffalo area, from a violin shop, and my parents and I were looking for basses, and for me to like finally have one. And then we were checking it out, and I started playing it, and I did not stop playing it. I just kept playing it. And then we walked out of that shop with that bass, who I affectionately call Sam.
Okay.
I used it. I used Sam all through undergrad, all through grad school, all through gigging. Now I have a separate bass that I bring on the road. It's a Chadwick that I use for when I'm traveling around. But it's about 100 years. Well, I guess more than 100 years old now. From around the turn of the century, 1900s, I guess, specifically. It's Czech bass, unknown maker, potentially from like the Marknakirchen region. And I've been informed that there's like kind of a lot of basses like that are like from that area, but like don't
kind of undocumented,
have like a specific maker.
Okay.
Flatback, relatively small, I would say, and I think that's something that has contributed to its ease in terms of like being more of a solo instrument, and contributed to some of the challenges in terms of like really blasting out Beethoven from a
when you say excuse me, when you say small, are you referring, I mean, it's 3/4, correct?
Yeah, it's a 3/4, but it's kind of
like on the smaller side of a like 5/8 3/4 in that gray area.
Yeah, I would say that's more correct.
Okay.
And when I got it, there was a metal deadbolt holding the bottom of the scroll together, and like every luthier that I took it to was like, "This is a disaster waiting to happen." Yeah. And there were a number of situations where something really bad could have happened. Like there was one time when I was traveling from Buffalo to California to go to graduate school. I bought a seat for the bass, and then it didn't work out with the airline, and I didn't have a hard case, so it got put in a soft case in the hold.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my God is right.
Yeah. So like you're just flipping out for 6 hours, the 6-hour flight, just like, is it broken yet? Is it broken yet? Is it broken yet?
Yeah.
Is it broken yet?
I was like weeping. I was I was like so torn up. I was like that, like, but the dude who checked it, because like we had to do like I guess a gate check, right? The dude who checked it is a fucking hero. He was like, I got this. Like he looked at me and he was like, I got this.
Yeah. And you guys just like, boom, we're here. Let's make this happen. This space is gonna arrive.
I don't know what he did, but he managed to get the bass in the soft case secure, and like the temperature is like extremely cold also, and it's in a soft case. So like the neck could have just exploded even if nothing hit it.
So many things, right? Yeah,
didn't anyway. And that was the worst of it, but there was like a number of situations where like every luthier was like, this is a ticking time bomb. So a couple of years ago I took this to Pete's in Portland, and he put a new neck on it.
Okay.
And that really changed the sound in a really awesome way. And he also put a fingerboard extension on there, which has been really, really excellent. It's now a removable neck bass. And I just find it really, really excellent to play. It's not great for if I'm like, because my primary project is playing in a bluegrass band where also I get to do crazy bow stuff called Fog Holler.
Okay.
And that's the band I bring the Chadwick on the road, because it's like that's like a modified Shen, and it's just like it's got more of like that punchy kind of sound that is really, really good. But yeah, the Sam is it's a very even instrument, pretty easy to play, I would say overall, and I've kind of like built my whole approach to bass playing around this instrument just because I've had it since kind of the beginning. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you've developed and this I think happens a lot with the instruments. You develop a relationship with that instrument.
Yes.
And it becomes like most other relationships, sometimes toxic, depending on the bass. But there's also like an affinity for that instrument, like I have one upright that I use, but I have a few electrics, and there's one that I have just for teaching, but the other two have very specific places and identities that
are
kind of like, yeah, if we're going here, then, and it's not just sonically, it's because of the relationship I have with the instrument. Yeah, it's bizarre.
I get that. It can be like a really intense personal
Yeah,
relationship.
absolutely. No, I mean, these instruments are responsible for so much that conveying the thoughts and the ideas and all that, like we're giving them the power to do this. I mean, we're controlling them, but they have a big force in that, you know. And
Yes.
so there's a lot of trust that I think goes into picking an instrument you feel comfortable with, because the instruments are responsible for quite a bit.
Yeah, they really, really, really are. So yeah, this ended up being, this is kind of like my home / recording studio base, and so this is what I brought to the place in Portland, and I'm really, really happy with how it ended up sounding in the studio. The engineer Adam Lee at Dead End Thomas was awesome, and I was able to get some tips from Paul Coward about how he likes to mic, and that was super, super helpful for me as well. And it was like a partial isolation situation, so we're able to get some of the live aspect, but also the bass tended to be in its own room, but with like some visibility, so that we were able to like stay locked in.
It sounded just from the recording quality of it. It sounded like the room was fairly good size, not massive, but good enough because there's a lot of air around the bass in the tone.
Yeah.
And so it's like that got captured too, and it felt not like it was a complete closet ISO booth with, you know, totally dead sounds and all that. Like there's a nice, comfortable air around the tone.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with that, because I feel like I was able to, you know, I guess use some of my experience doing classical stuff, like playing in like nice acoustic spaces, and then but also like not being in something that's like totally dead, because I found that recording in those environments can be pretty tough. So it was being able to like hear the instrument was pretty nice.
Yeah,
I felt like I was able to make the kinds of informed choices that I would make in a live situation, in terms of like reacting to like how things were sounding, and like being able to like really be present and performing in that kind of way. And I'm very, very happy with how everything came out. It was, I'm over the moon about it. Honestly.
Great. Now, coming from the classical background, what was it like performing with the microphone? Because I've talked to a lot of session players about that in general, and the nature of playing to the microphone, with the microphone around, how it changes the performance, maybe how you're seated, standing, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Like I play amplified a fair amount of the time, but like I do the thing where I put the mic in like a foam block, and I put that like in the foot of the bridge or whatever.
Okay.
Like that area. And then I like blend that with a pickup. So like I'm used to playing amplified, but like having the mic like very statically positioned, just because like as getting around the instrument, it tends to move around kind of a lot. And I definitely felt myself in some situations a little stiff. And like I feel like my proprioception when I'm playing requires like a lot of like real estate for me to feel like comfortable, like kind of like a 360-degree radius, just because like you know I've accidentally stabbed people with my bow, or like that has happened on like pretty big stages where that has happened, and it's like, oh.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So like in order for me to feel really comfortable, I feel like I need like a lot of clearance, kind of like in every direction. So like I didn't quite have that, just because I was always conscious about like mic placement, because it was to the left side of the instrument. So like try not to move around too much, and then like you start getting it in your head a little bit. It's like, oh, is this too much? Is this going to be fine? Sure. Oh, now I'm thinking, oh God.
Was it just the one mic kind of on the treble F hole? You know, like that miking technique where it's about 1.5 feet off the treble F hole?
I had two mics on the treble side. I had one
Okay.
close to the fingerboard, and then
Sure.
one close to the F hole. And then I think
Okay.
there was a third a little bit of ways out from the bridge. So I think it ended up being three mics total. So overall, it was fine. It's not completely alien to me, but I did feel a little stiff at times. But I think it was able to get dealt with, and I was able to get used to it. You know, I was in this. This was recorded over the course of 3 days.
Okay.
And it was just kind of like all day, every day, as long as they would let me stay in there and as long as my hands would work. So I was able to get used to it more and more kind of over time. And which is why we recorded the 5-piece stuff, which I thought would be the most difficult and complex to record at the very end after I was like able to get like comfortable.
We'll be back right after this.
If you're enjoying this conversation, there's even more waiting for you at the Bass Shed Backstage. Backstage is where the podcast continues beyond the public episodes with exclusive podcast extras created for bass players who want to dive deeper. Members get access to the 5 Spot, an extension of the podcast where guests respond to 5 rapid-fire bassist callouts, sharing their first reactions about the players who inspired them. You'll also unlock the Listening Room, a guided listening experience exploring landmark recordings, the bassist behind them, and what makes these albums so influential. Backstage members receive exclusive discounts on courses and workshops from the Bass Shed Academy, plus all access to our growing library of bass transcriptions and lessons. Become a Backstage member at thebassshed.com. Scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the show notes below.
Excellent.
Let's definitely dig into this record. So we have 10 tunes total. For, I mean, you know that obviously, but for the people that haven't checked it out yet, there's 10 tunes total. Like I you know kind of mentioned earlier, it's both a very strong narrative, musically and personally. When going through this, like I have notes per tune, and so we're just gonna go through the record kind of quickly, tune by tune, because I have thoughts. Tumbleweed is track 1.
Yep.
Very interesting form. I was trying to clock it, and I was just clocking it like in real time. I didn't get obviously manuscripts, but it's like in passing. And forgive me if I don't want to misrepresent your music.
Sure.
But I got like A, B, C, A, D, A, E, A, F. Like it always keeps going back to this reoccurring theme, and then there's going to be a new thing, and then we go back to A again. And the whole piece, because it's track 1, does have the feeling of an overture.
Great. Excellent.
Okay,
Excellent.
cool.
Very, very good. Very, very good. Tumbleweed is like kind of the first thing I ever wrote.
Okay.
It got I added to it and like rewrote some parts kind of over time, but I wrote it for a composition class in undergrad as one of my one of the classes that you're supposed to take. And I wrote it, deep in the throes of listening to Edgar constantly.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of got fleshed out, and it kind of turned into something that I would consider, an overture is a really good way to think about that. I hadn't considered that, but it's kind of like it's a bass showpiece. And it is
solo bass. I didn't talk about that in my setup, but it is a solo bass piece.
Yeah. And I played it. But yeah, it's got, it kind of features a lot of cool stuff. But I also wanted to have something that kind of tied it all together that I thought was like very rhythmically interesting. I kind of wanted something that did a little bit of everything, while also being like, okay, this is not what you think a bass piece is going to be for a lot of people. Because it's like, oh, there's like this intro, and it's like really slow and really beautiful, sure, and comes across in a way that I think is like very cinematic. And then there's like that cool riff, which is I played it for some folks who like didn't know, who were like more informed by like rock, and they were like, oh, that sounds like the riff from like I heard from the Grapevine or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I have never heard that song.
Right. I wasn't thinking of Marvin Gaye when I wrote the piece, but
no, I was definitely not. And then in the middle, it goes to the dominant, it goes back to the thing, and then it goes to the minor version of the dominant, and then there's a whole cadenza, because I wanted to have a part in the middle where you just do like a bunch of really flashy, cool stuff, and then it all ties together kind of nicely with a bow.
Yeah.
At the end, and out of all my pieces, that's been the one that people have like, at least on social media, have like reacted pretty strongly positively to. Like, there's been people who like strictly do like classical stuff who've like been like, hey, can I get like the score for that? Can I play this? Because this is cool.
Yeah.
Which is really, really dope. And I find that it's a big honor to be able to like make something that people think is like cool and that they want to play.
Sure.
So
yeah. Then going into track 2, this one has a different feel to it, although it's also solo bass. This one, the imagery, but you used the word cinematic when describing Tumbleweed just a second ago. I think that that's a through line that's a part of a lot of this music. And specifically this one was really cinematic for me, and it felt like a colonial waltz.
Oh, cool!
That's in my notes here. It's like, just when listening, I just whatever that is, where you just write down what you're thinking when I'm listening to review the records. And that's the first thing I wrote was colonial waltz. Like, that's how it felt to me. There's also a strong use of double stops and harmonics in what you're doing on the bass, technically too. But talk about the tune Moderate.
So Moderate is part of 3-tune series informed by kind of like a big turning point event for me when I was in graduate school. Between my first and second years, before I really committed to like, this is like what I'm doing, I went to Valley of the Moon Scottish Fiddle Camp taught by Alistair Fraser.
Okay.
And that, it opened me up to like the more folk world. A lot of the folks who like either teach or perform or like have gone to Berkeley, and like that whole East Coast contingent of like folk musicians and like people making new acoustic music. And so there were 3 teaching speeds for the tunes at that camp. There was fast up, there was fast down, and there was moderate. And I was like, aha, I can write a tune cycle, like a clever little
All right. Then I can just take those 2 songs off the list. Now I got it. Like, okay.
It's a whole series, and Moderate is informed by one of the guest instructors who was there. His name is Quiveen O'Reilly. Is not how you pronounce his last name, but I think that's like an anglicization of it. And he is a hardanger fiddle player from Ireland. And it's one of those instruments that has like a lot of like sympathetic strings, do a lot of stuff with overtones and a lot of stuff with harmonics. And I found his playing and compositions so mesmerizing that I was like, oh, I want to do something that's like informed by that. And so Moderate is a tune that uses a lot of harmonics, uses a lot of like perhaps not necessarily dissonant, but perhaps like very like dense double stops, but also has like it has like a very consistent like waltz rhythm kind of going throughout. But it's very directly inspired by him and his playing and trying to imitate some of the sounds that he got on my instrument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Track 3, Lazy Sunday, we have the arrival of the mandolin for the first time on the record. This is definitely a pivotal tune, I think, in the recording, the arc of the recording. Which is like, now it feels like we're really getting into bluegrass territory. Like we kind of like the lobby, area was bass solo informed. And then we opened the door and like, okay, now we just walked into more of a bluegrass show. Yeah.
Of course, there's definitely the Edgar Chris inspiration for this one. But this one was also, I wrote a lot of these pieces and played a lot of them as solo versions at like open mics.
Okay.
Like especially in the Bay Area when I was living there, I was doing that for a long time. So Lazy Sundays had a solo version that I was doing a lot. I also just did for a show this past weekend, which was really cool. But this is like, it is a instrumental examination and retrospective of my many relationships to Sunday, just like as a day, because being a queer person who grew up in a household with like some pretty interesting religious overtones, and also having experienced a lot of very challenging personal stuff. I don't know how specific I want to or should be in this situation, but yeah, Sunday has been a really hard day for me.
Like that's a reoccurring presence, is like Sundays are, especially
growing up.
Okay.
It was like the day that shit would hit the fan, like consistently.
Was this because like everybody's at the house and now family fights are going to break out? Was it stuff like that in addition to whatever else may or may not be happening?
Yeah, I would say that's more or less it.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why Sundays in general can have that thing. Like Sundays, it's the day off, where everybody should be at home or doing some family function. Excuse me. But Sundays always turn into tension.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's bizarre.
I think part of it is the expectation. I think because people know that they're supposed to, and then if something will go wrong or like real life will happen, I think that like creates like extra pressure on top of
someone's idealistic version of the day gets thwarted, and then there's tension.
Yeah. That's I guess my own theory on that. So like there's that like major pentatonic intro and outro, which I tried to approach musically two very different and distinct kind of ways to give it two different characters, because like a lot of my music is pretty preoccupied with like this idea of like two things that should not exist together existing simultaneously. So like on the top layer, it's like, oh, there's like a fun, it's like, oh, it's major, it's fun, there's a lot of sliding around, they're like jamming, and like right underneath that is like there is something wrong. And I guess that was what the version that ended up working out with the mandolin maybe doesn't have all of those sinister qualities that I think are easier to perhaps get in a solo arrangement. But that's kind of like why the ending ends up being a detuned version of like the main theme. So yeah, there's definitely like the Edgar Chris influence, but also there's a distinct like personal narrative and story. And also I wanted an excuse to play with Caden, who is a really sick mandolin player. And they are incredible. And I wanted, I figured that piece out of everything would work the best as a duo for the two of us. So yeah, it's a turning point, I think, for the overall narrative of the album, but also for definitely like, oh, this is more of a bluegrass thing that's happening now as well.
Getting so for the sake of time, track 4 is Fast Up, which you discussed. Actually, my first note on that was what the title was a reference to. This is gonna have acoustic guitar on it now, which is another new instrument making an appearance. Track 5, we have the bigger small ensemble. We have bass, acoustic guitar, violin, fiddle. That has much more of a traditional bluegrass quality to the whole nature of it. That kind of has just like this back porch picking kind of feel to it. It has the humor of that, and it has the presence of that, but a very educated version of it.
Good. Great.
That was a very cool tune. Track 6 is Fast Down. Again, you spoke to. We have the introduction of banjo here. I want to get to the title track. Is what I'm kind of fast forwarding to Late Bloomer. Talk about this. Talk about the title of the record. Talk about this, and then we'll talk about it. Well, here, let me set it up musically first. We have acoustic guitar and vocals. There's not a big bass presence on this.
No.
And it's very folky. My knee-jerk reaction when hearing it was the harmonies of Simon and Garfunkel. That's where it took me, which I'm a fan, so I hope that lands as a compliment.
Yeah.
There's a little bass interlude thing as a presence. It's deeply, deeply personal with a lot of rawness to it. It's a bold move this late in the record. You're 3/4 of the way through a record, establishing advanced bass techniques, bluegrass culture, composition, and this is a bold move, track 7, to make this statement. What was the reason for including this, and what was the reason for putting it where it is in the record?
I'm gonna try to keep this brief. The other singer and guitar player on the record, I work with him all the time. He plays in Fog Holler. He's a very excellent singer-songwriter and guitarist. So I asked him to do this with me and help. I've been doing a lot of songwriting specifically for Fog Holler, even though primarily my initial interest was instrumental stuff. I asked them to help have the song come to life, and they really wanted to do that. One of the big things that I've struggled with in terms of this record was I didn't want it to just be bass tricks the whole time through. And I think at this point we've created enough expectation of bass stuff, instrumental stuff, different flavors of bass stuff, different flavors of instrumental stuff. I think in order to keep the listener perhaps surprised, I wanted to place it a little bit later in the record, because as I'm sure you've noticed, it's been gradually scaling with more and more instruments.
I was aware of how and when the scale was happening. And the introductions of things and when they might come back, and are we establishing foreshadows and recalls? And I was kind of paying attention to all those things.
I imagined you would be, which is awesome. So I guess I'm always a fan of doing a rug pull, not in a mean-spirited kind of way, but in a way to make people perhaps surprised and re-engage. I would not think this is the rug pull. The rug pull didn't happen for me on the record until later, that we'll talk about. No, this I guess it's another turning point, I guess. As I think, because now we're adding vocals and we're changing the tone into something else. I guess there's a number of twists in the record now that I think about that for a second longer. But I wanted to I needed to learn how to sing. Sometimes I fill out bass harmonies, but I'm not a singer. So I had Tommy coach the ever-loving hell out of me for 2 months up until the record, and they were very, very gracious, and they were able to teach me a lot. And I was practicing singing a whole lot more than I ever have, and I'm very, very glad that I was able to learn from them in order to do that. And also, I didn't want to put the bass front and center the whole time, because I wanted the record to hopefully speak to not just people like me who are extremely nerdy and very interested in something that I have learned is incredibly esoteric.
Right.
So that's
I think we've normalized this to where it's not esoteric, but it's so esoteric. It's
extremely.
It's really bad. But we've just normalized it to the point where you start podcasts about it. That's how much I've normalized it. But this is it's incredibly esoteric.
So I guess that's why the placement. And I think the last thing I want to say is that the big instrument change up and having it just be guitar played in a very specific kind of way with a little bit of a bass fill, I think allows the vocal messaging of the song to cut through that much more clearly, and hopefully be much more effective contextually than everything else. So did a lot of thinking about that, but I guess as I have learned as someone who has CPTSD and has struggled with dealing with that in a lot of situations, it turns out you don't want to talk about all the stuff that's like ruining your life and like messed you up. It like first thing in a conversation that tends to not be like a good
not a great icebreaker.
Starter.
No, not a great icebreaker.
No, not a winner. Not a winner.
No. Maybe topical current events. Let's start there. Then we can get into whatever is discussed with the therapist. What was the? It's a bold move then to release the lyrical content of that tune. That's another shift, not just adding vocals, but this is a deeply raw personal journal entry.
Yeah, I don't think stories like mine are that uncommon, unfortunately, and I guess being able to share that with people is hopefully helpful. I've had a similar kind of experience with another song that I wrote that I play with Fog Holler called The Fountain Family Waltz. It says what it does right there on the tin. And there have been a lot of folks who come from a variety of backgrounds and situations that have found it to really speak to their life and experience from a wide range of cultural situations. And so I guess, it's very vulnerable, but I have found that vulnerability can be really, really helpful and healing to people. Yeah. And I
agree with that. Did it almost not make the record, or was it this is definitely going on here? Or was it like, I don't know if I want to get that personal. Let me just introduce myself as kind of a bass player to the masses and then an individual instead of all of it at once.
I felt like there was room for one track like this on the album. I couldn't make a whole singer-songwriter album necessarily, but I felt like contextually with the length of the track and how much instrumental stuff is happening both before and after, I wanted to I thought there was space for something not overwrought, not overproduced, not overly complicated, just like something very much like down the line, voices and guitar, a little bit of an interlude, nothing crazy. We don't need to like totally jump the shark here. And I wanted it on there, and I thought that it could make the cut. The only question was if I could do it. Honestly, for me, could I sing the part and stay in tune with the other person who was singing a harmony, who's an experienced vocalist and harmony singer.
So the will this exist on the album or not wasn't because of the personal vulnerability, but it was because of the technique of singing.
Yeah, I feel like I established a certain bar of quality with the other performances, and I didn't want something to radically differ in quality just because it's like my precious little baby or whatever, right? I it would have been a case like if I didn't think I could do it, I would have had to kill my darlings for the sake of the record, which is fine. But that would have been my primary concern and consideration for that, not the vulnerability aspect. You've seen the album art. I think I sent that to you, right? Yeah, I think the vulnerability is part of the deal.
Right. Then we move into track 8, which is titled Boy Band. We have another bigger, small ensemble with fiddle, mandolin, and percussion. That's a new addition. Everybody takes solo.
It's fiddle, mandolin, banjo, guitar. Was
there not some percussion in there? Again, I was just making notes in real time. Okay.
Nope.
That's on me. That's listener error. My bad.
That might have also. When I'm doing rhythm playing specifically, I can play in a pretty percussive kind of way, just because I'm used to like kind of carrying the whole rhythm section by myself sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody takes solos. During the fiddle solo, a violin, fiddle, I don't know. I used to play country music. There is a difference between the two. I wrote fiddle, but I think of it as violin.
Lillian is a fiddle player for sure.
Okay, that's a style, not an instrument. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's a specific mood change in the piece when it comes to the fiddle solo that the guitar solo then elaborates on. There's a lot of tension in the building. There's a lot of mood shifts in this one. It's a great piece, also very thematic. This was the rug pull. The next tune is the rug pull. Nowhere. After having gone, like, we have 2 songs left, nowhere would I have thought that Jimmy Eat World would make an appearance on this record by, like, I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened? What's going on here? Okay, walk me through it. How did Jimmy Eat World from what year was this song? Like, this has to be like what, 04, 05? This song was a huge hit.
Yeah, it was early 2000s.
Yeah,
early 2000s sometime. I have been sitting on this idea of a song as a cover for a really long time.
Okay.
And I think when I came up with a name for the title track, because that was something that was kicking around for a while. And then once I wrote the song, I was like, oh, well, that's the name of the album. I forget the order exactly. It was something like that. Sure. And then I was like, oh, like, I think the lyrics of this song are, they come across to me as very genuine and like very kind and compassionate. And they are, they're really cool. And I guess it felt thematically appropriate. And then I had to figure out how to make it work. To me, in terms of everything on the album, this was the one as like, if I don't know if this is going to work.
Okay.
Even like up until like the last rehearsals, I was like, I don't know if this is going to fucking work. I don't know. I don't know. It's full bluegrass band. I have no idea if this is going to work. I don't know if my vocal performance is going to be good. I don't know if the arrangement makes any sense. I don't know if any of this is good, but I want to try. Yeah, it's just I feel I'm really happy with it, and it has kind of the most production on it out of everything. Some of that was the engineer's suggestion, was like doing the vocal layering, just because like I wasn't going for like a really like powerful vocal tone, because I wanted to get a kind of more intimate kind of like tender character. And so like doing like the vocal layering was something that he suggested, and I thought was a really, really cool idea. And I think the messaging of the song speaks to the idea of being a late bloomer. So I thought it found its place. And I also thought placing it towards the end of the album would be a big surprise for a lot of people.
And it was fantastic. And the other, the other position I feel like in the middle by Jimmy World holds is it's kind of the last scene in the story or play, because track 10, now coach me on how to pronounce this. Naranjas?
Naranjas, it's a Spanish word.
Okay, naranjas. Meaning what?
Oranges.
Oranges, okay. This feels like a end of scene, where you're right off into the sunset. Like, this is definitely, the word fin comes up on a French film. Like, we're over, and this is the last scene. But it's not a new scene. It's just the conclusion of the story we've already been on.
Yeah.
And so that definitely was kind of a recall to the initial feeling of an overture, and the whole album setting this story up. So not stuck in the middle. It's a different song. The middle was kind of like the last event before we conclude things, and it was a bold event to have the cover song on there, and it plays in nicely with this element to conclusion. That's back to solo bass, just like we opened. So it's this bookend feel also.
Yeah. I also set it in the dominant key to the first track on the album, so that it could potentially, I guess,
Yeah.
to my more nerdy side, I thought that would loop together in a really nice kind of way. Naranjas is, I would say it's an end of scene. It's a looking forward, I think, at other sounds and other things that I'm interested in working on as an artist. Because like this is kind of like, this album is kind of giving myself permission and like the first step in like my own journey, I guess, as like an independent artist now. So I guess I wanted to place this one at the album because as like as a conclusion, but also a transitory into like the next steps.
Right.
And like what the future.
It's a setup also. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, it's a piece about death, which I feel like is appropriate for endings. It's
emotionally.
Yeah.
It's a piece about death. Were you able to have a cathartic response when performing this or when releasing it that kind of solidified a death of a former version of yourself so you can move forward artistically, personally, and kind of move forward in the journey, in freedoms, in whatever it might be?
I think kind of all of the above. I find this piece very emotionally demanding to play, as well. It's very technically demanding as well. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is improvised.
Okay.
So it's a very demanding piece, but it's something that I feel it's appropriate for an ending. And I find if I'm really emotionally engaged and the space is like right for it, I find it very, cathartic to perform. And I think as I recorded and worked on it and like it finalized its placement on the record, I was like, I feel really good and about it. And it's I think I wanted to be able to step out from, I guess, my self-imposed Edgar's shadow, as it were. Right. And so like the inclusion of primarily a vocal track, the inclusion of this track, which has an effects pedal on it, which creates a very distinct sound, the inclusion of a cover, the inclusion of a 5-piece bluegrass band like Instrumental Rager with like a jam section in the middle. Like all of those are my attempts to create a more distinct musical identity and create a more cohesive musical statement about myself and what I hope to do and what I hope to do moving forward.
Cool.
As well.
Yeah, that's great.
If you've enjoyed this episode, you can support the Bass Shed podcast by clicking subscribe and giving this video a thumbs up on YouTube, or by following the show and leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. Every subscription, like, rating, and review helps grow and connect the bass community. Thank you for your support.
All right. That was my talk with double bassist and composer NOA Eve. Again, the album is titled Late Bloomer, and it is out now on all the streaming platforms. I highly recommend this record. It's a really great record. I had a lot of fun not only listening to it in research for this episode, but I had a lot of fun talking to Noah about the making of the record. So please go check that out. There is links in the show notes below. There was a lot of great stuff in that conversation, a lot of great topics covered about pursuing your own artistic identity and being bold enough to pursue that. That was fantastic. I hope everybody can use that as a takeaway to pursue whatever it is that they want to define them as a musician and how the bass fits in to that journey and into that process. All right, folks, that's about all I got for this one. I'll catch you on the next one in a minute.